Hi, I'm Shelley Samone, and this is She's Arrived, a journey of self discovery. But this isn't just small talk. Here, we go deep with stories and conversations with people who have found their thing and through it have stepped into their calling. Hey, it's Shelley. Glad you answered the call. Question: has doing your thing forced you to branch out beyond your comfort zone, only to return to the familiar and realize you no longer fit in? Trying to integrate your new normal into your old lifestyle can be eye opening. And sometimes when we go beyond just doing our thing and step into our calling, we are forced to wake up to the truth that we have outgrown our environment or grew apart from our circle. My thing is expressing myself through words, and experimenting with ways to do my thing publicly caused me to branch out in ways I would have never imagined. While pursuing my master's degree in creative writing, I jumped at an opportunity to teach English in Shanghai. Now, I don't know if you're into social media, but I wasn't. Not until I accepted the position and knew that I was moving overseas. I immediately started to share the process of relocating from the United States to Asia on Facebook. I was then inspired to create a blog titled Penetrating Shanghai. And once I got to China, I found that sharing the experience of living overseas was a thing for a lot of expats. I became a part of a global community with people from all over the world who are living in foreign countries. We made recommendations like things to do and places to eat when visiting destinations. I would share travel reviews of places I had gone throughout Asia and hashtag the name Penetrating Shanghai on all of my social media content. I was just doing my thing until Instagram stopped me. If IG has ever blocked your content, then you know how frustrating it can be. They explained that my posts were derogatory, but it took me a while to realize it wasn't the photo of me in a bikini island hopping around Thailand. It was the word penetrating that got me shadow banned. Once I figured this out, I accepted the challenge to come up with a different name, especially since I had expanded my travel content outside of Shanghai anyway. For weeks, I tried to come up with a more Instagram friendly hashtag, and this caused me to reflect on how far I had come. It had been 10 years since I set out on my journey of self discovery. It all started with me leaving my hometown in Chicago and moving to New York, but that was only the beginning. I had traveled the world to develop my love for self expression and to experiment with ways to share my experiences in a way that would gain public attention. That's when it hit me. I was finally doing my thing for the world to see, and my following on social media was growing. The new name for my travel experiences came to me. She's Arrived. I wouldn't have been able to clarify it as a journey of self discovery at that time, but looking back, that's exactly what I had experienced. She's Arrived became my official passport stamp, marking the end of my search for experience in a work that was both intrinsically and extrinsically rewarding. And when you're doing what you love, it's never just about the money. The public recognition of doing my thing was enough to motivate me to keep going. So I ended my contract to teach English in Shanghai early and moved back to the United States the same day that I defended my thesis to obtain my master's degree in creative writing. Branching out was life transforming for me. If you've ever branched out and it's caused you to develop your thing in ways you've never imagined, then I'm sure you too tried to share your new world with familiar people who just weren't open to it. Okay, follow me because I'm about to take you on a journey. Sometime after the COVID-19 pandemic was over, I came up with this crazy idea to confront my fear of the ocean by going scuba diving. I called my swim coach who lived in Brooklyn and who was also well traveled. And I asked him about his recent water adventures in the US Virgin Islands. He highly recommended that I book the trip, and he surprised me at the airport during my layover in Miami. We flew together to St. Thomas and went island hopping in St. John for like 3 or 4 days. It was an unforgettable experience for a few reasons. Like, at our hotel, we met so many other people who lived in Brooklyn. I was living in Denver at the time, but if you know anything about New Yorkers, they feel there is not a destination that can compare. So I felt like I had something to prove. And I made it clear that while I was from Chicago and now living in Denver, I also lived in New York 8 years. Of course, that wasn't good enough for them. There was one guy, classic New Yorker, who just had to trump me, right? Telling us he was born and raised in Brooklyn, but now lives in Colombia. I don't want to lose you, so let me see if I can walk you through this. After my scuba diving attempt in the US Virgin Islands, I'm now back in Denver. Another guy who I taught English with in Shanghai told me he was moving to Medellin. I would have had no clue where Medellin was had it not been the same city in Colombia the guy I met in the US Virgin Islands lived. About a month or two later, I came across a flight deal to Medellin, so I reached out to both of them. They recommended where to stay and told me what I needed to do because, like I said, at that time, we had just come out of the pandemic and we still needed to take COVID tests to travel to certain places. But once I got to Medellin, they showed me the best freaking time. The guy that I met in the Virgin Islands, he even took me on a day trip about an hour or two drive away from Medellin to Guatapé. Being a great host is just a thing in the expat community. Even when I couldn't pay it forward personally, it was nothing for me to just call someone I had met abroad, let them know that I knew someone who was coming to their location, and ask them if they were available to show them a good time. But when I tried to do this with my old circle, they acted as if I was trying to set them up on a blind date with someone who lived long distance or turn their private space into an Airbnb. Look, I don't know when being hospitable had to come with an agenda, but for me, it was an everyday thing. And you know how it is when you level up. People start to feel like you're acting brand new, or they think you think you're better than them simply because you're no longer willing to shrink yourself into ways you've outgrown. And if we're honest, we can become impatient with people who become set in their ways when we're inspired by branching out. Perfect example. My old circle felt a certain way because going to brunch was no longer enough for me. I wanted to do something other than sit around drinking and gossiping and talking about our love lives. There was only so much cattiness, conversations about money, who had what, and name dropping that I could take. I had to accept that I didn't fit in anymore. You already know when you've outgrown your environment or grown apart from your circle, eventually you stop pretending you have anything left in common and stop showing up for old time's sake. Some of the people in my clique had that if you can't beat or join our attitude and would suggest that we plan group trips. And let me tell you, I hope you never have to experience it, but I learned the hard way that going on trips with the wrong crowd can cause you to end relationships with people you grew up with. After experiencing the difference between transformational travel and a weekend getaway, I didn't just want to go somewhere to do the same things we were already doing back home. Don't get me wrong. I love doing the tourist Instagram worthy things, but I also wanted to immerse myself in the place by eating authentic food. Or one of my favorite things to do when I travel is to hang out with the locals. And it only takes one time for me to be in a foreign country with someone who disrespects the culture or customs or becomes rude to a native simply because they don't understand English for me to never want to travel with that person again. And it's all because traveling the world in order to do my thing raised my cultural awareness and sensitivity. But here's where I'm going with all of this. Branching out can be life enriching. And returning to the familiar taught me You don't have to revert back or settle for the old when you've been exposed to something new. Because when you branch out the right way, you can have the best of both worlds. And unfortunately, not everyone can come with you.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial again. 2EE.